Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama sallaita ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima. Innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama barakta ala Ibrahima wa ala ali Ibrahima. Innaka Hamidum Majid. रब शरह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वाहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली रब्बना ज़िदना इल्मा या मुक़ल्लिबुल क़ुलूब सब्बित क़ल्बी अला दीनिक आमीन. Today we'll do the second part of Surah Anbiya, and in this part we will do from verse number 51 till 82. वलकद आतैना इब्राहीम रुश्दहु मिन क़ब्ल वकुन्ना बिही आलिमीन. Indeed, we have granted Ibrahim his correct course from before, and we were ever aware of him. إذ قال لأبيه وقومه وهذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها عاكفون. When he told his father and his people, what are these statues that you are devoted to? قالوا وجدنا آباءنا لها عابدين. They replied, we found our forefathers worshipping them. قال لقد كنتم أنتم وآباؤكم في ضلال مبين. Ibrahim salam said, verily you people and your forefathers were certainly in manifest error. قالوا أجئتنا بالحق أم أنت من اللاعبين. They said, do you bring us the truth, or are you from this jester? قال بل ربكم رب السماوات والأرض الذي فطرهن وأنا على ذلكم من الشاهدين. 56. He said, but your Rabb is the Rabb of the heavens and the earth, who has created you. I am of those who bear witness to this. وَتَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تَوَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ. And by Allah, I shall certainly formulate a scheme for you, for your idols, after you have turned your backs. فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُزَاءً إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ عَلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ. So he reduced them to fragment, except for the largest of them, so that they may have recourse towards him. قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. They exclaimed, who has done this to our gods? He is certainly from the oppressors. قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. They said, we have heard a youth make mention of them. He is called Ibrahim. قالوا فأتوا به على أعين الناس لعلهم يشهدون. They said, bring him before the people so that they may be witness. قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. They asked, is it you who did this to our gods, O Ibrahim? قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. He replied, but this large one has done it. Ask them if they can talk. فرجعوا إلى أنفسهم فقالوا إنا أنتم ظالمون. They all searched their souls and said, you are oppressors indeed. ثم نكسوا على رؤوسهم لقد علمت ما هؤلاء ينطقون. They then lowered their heads, saying, you know very well that these cannot speak. قال أفتعبدون من دون الله ما لا ينفعكم شيئا ولا يضركم. He said, do you then worship besides Allah such things that can neither profit you nor harm you? أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Shame on you and those that you worship besides Allah. Do you not understand? قالوا حرقوا وانصروا آلهتكم إن كنتم فاعلين. They said, burn him and assist you your gods if you will do so. قلنا يا نار كوني بردا وسلام على إبراهيم. We said, O fire, be cool and peaceful for Ibrahim. وأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأخسرين. while they intended to plot against Ibrahim, we made them to worst losers. The people in the region where Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam was born all worshipped idols, although there were none to teach Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam about Tawheed. Allah imbued in him the correct belief. Allah made him so staunch that none could mislead him. Allah also granted him the ability to propagate this belief to the people. Referring to this, Allah says, "Indeed, we had granted Ibrahim his correct course of guidance from before, and we were ever aware of him." When he told his father in particular and his people in general what are these status that you are devoted to, he meant to impress upon their minds the futility of worshipping lifeless objects. They could not give any suitable reply, so they replied, "We found our forefathers worshipping them." So they blindly followed in the tracks of their blind forefathers. With conviction and vehemence, Ibrahim alayhis salam said, "Verily, you people and your forefather are certainly in manifest error." They said, "Do you bring us the truth, or are you from the jesters?" He replied by telling them that what he said was no joke. He told them, "Nay, but your Rabb is the Rabb of the heavens and earth, who has created you. I am of those who bear witness to this." He the added, "And by Allah, I shall certainly formulate a scheme for your idols after you have turned your back." Allah relates the episode in verse 85 to 98 of Surah Safat. Surah number is 37. Where Allah says, when he, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, said to his people and his father, "What do you worship? Do you desire concocted deities instead of Allah? What is your opinion about the Rabb of the universe?" He glanced once at the stars and then he said, "I feel ill." So they turned their backs on him and left. He hurried to the gods and said, "Do you not eat? What ails you that you do not speak?" He then turned to them, striking them with force. The people came to him in haste. He said, "Do you worship what you carve, whereas people has created you and what you do?" They said, "Construct a building for him and cast him into a blazing fire." They devised a plot against him, but we made them the one to look down. Malumat-e-Tanzil reports that the people of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam used to have a celebration out of two every year, after which they returned to prostrate to their idols. It was when they went to one such celebration that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam broke the idols. On that day, his father told him to accompany them so that he may take a liking to their faith. As he walked with them, he looked at the stars which they reversed and said that he felt sick. He then returned to the town. The people had left food as offsprings before the idols. So when Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam approached the idols, he said, "Do you not eat?" They should not reply. So he said, "What ails you that you do not speak?" He then began to hit the idols with an axe until he reduced them to fragments, except for the largest of them, so that they may have resource towards him. He then placed the axe around the neck of the large one. Some commentators have mentioned that towards him refer to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam, that they would not abort their deen religion and would turn to his deen religion. Others say that towards him means that they would turn to this big idol and ask him who the culprit was. Seeing the axe around its neck, they may also think that this large idol was responsible. Malumat-e-Tanzil, page 248. When the people returned to find their idols demolished, they exclaimed, "Who has done this to our God? He is certainly from the oppressors." Some of those present said, We have heard a youth make certain of them when he threatened to plot a scheme for them. He is called Ibrahim. They said, bring him before the people so that they may be witnesses. When Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam was brought before the people, they asked, is it you who did this to our gods? O Ibrahim, he replied, but this large one has done it. If you people do not believe me, then ask them if they can talk. They all searched their souls and, realizing the error of their ways, said to each other, you are oppressors indeed. Then they lowered their heads in embarrassment, saying, you know very well that these cannot speak. This was a most excellent method of propagation because of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam got the people to admit their own folly. He then told them, do you then worship besides Allah such thing that can neither profit you nor harm you? Shame on you and those that you worship besides Allah. Do you not understand? When the people could not find any reply to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam, they blurted out, burn him and assist your gods if you will do so. It is strange that these people had to hurry to the assistance of their gods when the god should have been assisting them. Malumat Tanzil reports that they kept Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam imprisoned in a room and began to build an enclosure in which they could light a large fire. Thereafter, they started collecting wood to fuel the inferno. People were so antagonistic towards Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam that sick people would vow to collect firewood if they were cured, and women also took similar vow of if any of their tasks were accomplished. People even bought wood to add to the fire, even if it meant that women spent the profits of their spinning for it. Eventually, they lit the fire. The heat of the fire was so intense that animals passing by died of the heat. They stroked the fire for an entire week. Although a smaller fire could have sufficed to burn one person, the people extracted themselves to make the fire that big because they feared being disgraced of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam was not burnt by the smaller fire. When the fire was ready, the people hesitated a while because they did not know how to put Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam into the fire. Since it was unapproachable, it was there then Iblis, the enemy of the Anbiya alayhis salam, came to their aid. Even today, he continues to give ideas to the enemies of Islam. He advised them to build a catapult which with which they could cast Ibrahim alayhis salam into the fire. When the Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam was being thrown into the fire, the angels in the charge of the waters came to offer assistance, telling him that if he wished, they could extinguish the fire. The angels in charge of the winds also offered their assistance. However, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam refused their assistance, saying, Allah is sufficient for me, and He is the best of assistants. Hazrat Ubay bin Ka'b ta'ala narrates that Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam came to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam asking him if he required anything. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam replied, I do not require any assistance from you. Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam then told him, then seek help from your Rabb. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam said, my Rabb has perfect knowledge of my situation. His knowledge suffices for me. In this way, he handed his affairs over to Allah without even making dua. Allah commanded the fire, saying, O fire, be cool and peaceful for Ibrahim. Allah added the word peaceful so that the fire does not become so cold that it would freeze Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam. Consequently, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam stayed in the fire for 7 days without being burnt at all. The only thing that burnt were the shackles that found his feet. The angel in charge of shadows appeared in the form of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam himself and kept him company in the fire. Since Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam was deprived of his clothes, then thrown into the fire, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam brought for him clothing from Jannah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And a carpet from Jannah as well. Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam put the clothes on for him and spread out the carpet, whereupon the two sat and spoke. Wah. Nimrud the king was astonished when he saw Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam in a garden talking to someone while the wood around him was being consumed by the fire. He called out to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam saying, "Can you get out of the fire?" Certainly, replied Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he came out. Namrud said, "It seems that your Rabb is exceptionally powerful. Even the fire is subservient to him. I shall sacrifice 4,000 cows in the name of your Rabb." Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam said to him, "Your sacrifices will not be accepted by Allah as long as you remain an adherent to your deen, religion. Forsake your deen, religion, and accept mine." Namrud replied, "I cannot forsake my deen, religion, and my kingdom, but I will sacrifice the cows." He then sacrificed the cows and desist from persecution. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, narrated by Malumat-e-Tanzil, Volume 3, page 251. Surah Safat mentions that the kuffar said, "Construct a building for him and cast him into a blazing fire." They therefore constructed a special place where they lit the fire. The entire nation converged on the plot to kill the solitary Nabi of Allah alayhi salam, but they were unsuccessful. Therefore, Allah says, while they intended to plot against Ibrahim, we made them the worst loser. The verse of Surah Safat says, "They intended to plot against him, but we made them the lowest." Verse number is 98. Much of what has been recounted above from Malumat-e-Tanzil confirms with the narrative of the Quran. However, the rest seems to be scored from the Bani Israel. It has been narrated here, though, because it does not contradict any law of the Sharia nor any verse of the Quran. We shall presently relate some hadiths pertaining to the same incident. Hazrat Sharik Raziallah Ta'ala reports that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam instructed that chameleons be killed, saying that one of them blew at Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, narrated by Bukhari, volume 2, page 474. This hadith means that the chameleon blew into the fire kindled for Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam with the intentions of stalking him further. Although its blowing would not have affected such a large fire at all, still the chameleon blew in it because of its inherent evil nature. An enemy leaves no stone unturned to cause injury to his adversary, even if it means doing the most insignificant act because of its inherent evil and the fact that it could be harmful to man. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed the Muslims to kill chameleons. Hazrat Abu Hurairah Raziallahu Ta'ala reports from the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that the person who kills a chameleon with the first strike shall receive the reward of 100 good deeds. The person who kills it with a second strike shall receive a lesser reward, and the person who kills it with the third strike shall earn a lesser reward. Narrated by Muslim, Volume 2, page 236. Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas Raziallahu Ta'ala narrates that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "You will all be resurrected barefooted, naked, and uncircumcised on the day of Qiyamah. The first person to be clothed will be Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam," narrated by Bukhari. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam will receive the privilege because he has stripped off this clothing when he was cast into the fire. Hazrat Abu Hurairah Raziallahu Ta'ala reports From Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam never lied except about three matters. The first two were for Allah's pleasure. The first of these was when he refused to accompany his people and said, I feel ill. The second was then he told them, but this large one has done it. The third occasion transpired when he was once traveling with his wife, Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam. They happened to pass by the territory of tyrannical king. Someone informed the king that a person, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, was passing by with an exceptionally beautiful woman. When the king sent a messenger to ask Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam who the lady was, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam told him that she was his sister. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam then told Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam that if the king ever called her up, she would tell him that she was his sister. This was because the king would retain her if she knew that she was his wife. He also told her that she could be called his sister because she was really his sister in Deen religion, since they were the only two believers in the land. Nevertheless, the king forcefully summoned for her to him. As he left, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam began performing salah. When the king tried to touch her, she became paralyzed. He pleaded to her to pray for him, promising never to harass her again. When she did so, he was cured. However, he again attempted to touch her. This time the same paralysis took place more severely. He again pleaded with her to pray for him and promised that he would not harm her again. When she did so and he was revealed of the malady, he called his officer telling him that he had not brought a human to him but some devil. He then realized Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam gifting her with a maid servant by the name of Hajra. When she returned to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, she found him engaged in salah. When he asked her what was happened by a gesture of the band, she replied, of the hand. She replied, Allah has overturned the plot of the kuffar upon him and given me a maid servant by the name of Hajra, narrated by Bukhari, volume 2, page 474. The first of the three lies that when he said, I feel ill, was mentioned so that he could have the opportunity to destroy the idols for Allah's sake. The statement meant that he was not in the mood of accompanying them, which may be described as being sick. Using certain linguistic rules of Arabic language, other ulama have interpreted the statement to mean that he could get sick, which is not a lie at all. The people merely misunderstood what he really meant. The second lie when he told them, but this large one has done it, was mentioned to impress upon the people's minds that their idols were helpless. In this way, he was able to present Tawheed to them. Ulama say that the statement could be interpreted as if this large one could have done it, or if these could talk, uh, then it is also possible that the large one could have done it. The third untruth was also not a real lie because Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam was really his sister in Deen religion. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say that this third untruth was for the pleasure of Allah because it included a degree of personal interest as well. However, it should be borne in mind that their journey was one of Hajra, which was sure to be amply rewarded by Allah. Then too, a person will be greatly rewarded for protecting the chastity of a believing woman, especially his wife. Fatul Bari reports from the Musnad Ahmad that Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas ta'ala said, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam continued the three things that appear to be untrue for the protection of Allah's deen and to combat in his enemies. Volume 6, page 392. These lies were therefore not really lies in the true sense of the word. They were only referred to as lies in the hadith because the lofty mantle of Nabihood demands that the Anbiya alayhi salam also be conscious in these matters. Bukhari, volume 1, page 74, reports a hadith in which it is mentioned that on the day of Qiyamah, people will run to Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam to plead with him to intercede for reckoning to commence. He will declare himself incapable of the task and send them to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam when they will place the same request to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. He will also decline, saying that he spoke the above three untruths. For this reason, he will also consider himself unfit for this task. Commenting on this hadith, Mullah Ali Qari Rahmullah writes that these three untruths were not really lies but are referred to as such because they appear to the lies. This caused Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam to consider himself unworthy of this great intersection. The closer a person is to Allah, the more he fears Allah and apprehends accountability for even the slightest error. This applies to all the Anbiya alayhi salam who may have erred. Ibn al-Malik rahmullah has mentioned that the perfectionist may be taken to task for certain deeds that would appear to be acts of devotion if carried out by others. A question has been posed about the third untruth of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. The necessity of his statement has been questioned because the tyrannical king would have apprehended Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam irrespective of whether she has the sister of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam or his wife. In fact, he did not apprehend her despite the truth. Why was it then necessary to say that she was his sister? Commentators have mentioned that although the king was a tyrant, his deen religion demanded that he does not apprehend anyone's sister. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam expected him to adhere to his deen religion in this regard. However, the king was unable to resist the temptation of molesting her when he saw her stunning beauty. When the king attempted to molest her, she made the following dua: O Allah, you know that I have believed in you and in your Nabi. I have also guarded my chastity, so do not allow this kafir to overpower me. Narrated by Fathul Bari. The ignorant king would not admit that he was wrong in his way, but rather choose to call Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam as devil. However, he did not realize that she was a pious woman, because of which he gave the maidservant Hajra as a gift. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam later married Hazrat Hajra alayhi salam, and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam was born from her. The mother and son were later taken to Makkah. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam endured many trials and adversities for Allah's deen, because of which Allah declares in Surah Nisa, Allah chose Ibrahim for a friend. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam became known as the father of all the Anbiya alayhi salam. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba with Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, after which he prayed for the people of Makkah, saying, O our Rabb, send among them a messenger from their midst who will recite your verses to them, teach them the book and wisdom, and purify them. Without doubt, you are the mighty, the wise. Allah accepted this dua with the advent of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from his progeny, that is Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was instructed to adhere to the creed of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now I'll recite three more verses. ونجيناه ولوطا إلى الأرض التي باركنا فيها للعالمين ووهبنا له إسحاق ويعقوب نافلة وكلا جعلنا صالحين وجعلناهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا وأوهينا عليهم فعل الخيرات وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وَكَانُوا لَنَا عَابِدِينَ. We rescued Ibrahim and Lut to a land that we had blessed for all in the universe. We gifted Ibrahim with Ishaq and a grandson, Yaqub. We made all of them righteous. 73. We made leaders who guided by our orders, and we commanded them to perform good deeds, to establish salah, and to pay zakat. They were all our worshippers. The above verse makes mention of Hazrat Lut alayhi salam, who was the son of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam's paternal uncle. They both left their homeland and migrated to Palestine, which Allah refers to as land that we had blessed for all in the universe. Allahu Akbar. Allah says that thereafter we gifted Ibrahim with a son by the name of Ishaq and a grandson Yaqub. Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam was the son of Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. We made all of them righteous. They were all adherents of Allah's command and abstained from everything that He prohibited. Allah says further, we made them leaders who guided others by our orders, and we commanded them to perform good deeds, to establish salah, and to pay zakah. They were all our worshippers. Verse number 74. وَلُوطًا آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْقَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كَانَتْ تَعْمَلُ الْخَبَائِثَ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمَ سُوءٍ فَاسِقِينَ. We granted Lut wisdom and knowledge, and we rescued him from a town that used to perpetrate despicable acts. They were certainly evil and lecherous people. وَأَدْخَلْنَاهُ فِي رَحْمَتِنَا إِنَّهُ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And we admitted him into our mercy. He was indeed from among the righteous. Allah says that He granted Lut wisdom and knowledge. After he migrated with Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah made him also a Nabi and sent him to preach to certain towns near Jordan. The people of these towns engaged in numerous depraved action, one of them being deriving sexual gratification from men and boys, Sodom. This vile deed dwarfed all other sins, causing the people to indulge in all other sins as well. Despite all his efforts, the people refused to desist from their atrocities. Eventually, Allah punished these people by overturning their towns and raising stones on them. Allah saved Hazrat Lut alayhi salam and the Mu'mineen with his family from this punishment. Referring to this, Allah says, we rescued him from a town that used to perpetrate peaceable act. They were certainly evil and lecherous people. This entire incident had been discussed in Surah Araf, verse number 80 till 84, and Surah Hud, verses 77 till 83. Allah says further, and we admitted him into the ranks of those pious bondsmen upon whom we showed our mercy. He was indeed from among the righteous. The rank of the Salihin, the righteous, is indeed extremely high, the highest echelon of which is occupied by the Anbiyas because of their innocence. Verse number 76. وَنُوحًا إِذْ نَادَى مِنْ قَبْلُ فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ فَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. Translation: And remember Nuh when he called from before, and we responded to him, so we rescued him and his family from tremendous distress. وَنَصَرْنَاهُ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمَ سُوءٍ فَأَغْرَقْنَاهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And we granted him salvation from a nation who denied our verses. They were indeed an evil nation, so we drowned all of them. After preaching to his nation for an extensive period of 950 years, only a few people accepted the message of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam. Finally, he submitted to Allah, saying, O my Rabb, do not leave a single kafir alive on the earth. Allah accepted this dua of his and sent torrential rains and waters from the earth itself. As a result, all the kuffar were drowned, while the believers were rescued on the ark and Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam had built. All the members of his family were also rescued except his wife and one son. Allah says in Surah Nuh, on account of their sins, they were drowned and entered into the fire. A detailed account of this incident has passed in Surah Araf, verses 59 till 64, and Surah Hud, verses 25 till 49. Allah says, so we rescued him and his family from tremendous distress. This refers to being rescued from the floods and from the precaution of his nation. 78 verse. وداود وسليمان إذ يحكمان في الحرث إذ نفشت فيه غنم القوم وكنا لحكمهم شاهدين. Remember Dawood and Suleiman when they arbitrated about a crop that was trampled by the goats of a people, we were witnesses to their decision. ففهمناها سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما وسخرنا مع داود الجبال يسبحن والطير وكنا فاعلين. We explained the decision to Suleiman and granted wisdom and knowledge to both of them. We subjugated the mountains and birds to Daud's service, and they all engaged in Allah's glorification. We are the ones who can do. وَأَلَّمْنَاهُ صَنْعَةَ لَبُوسٍ لَكُمْ لِتُحْصِنَكُمْ مِنْ بَأْسِكُمْ فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ شَاكِرُونَ. We taught Dawood the skill of making armor so that it protects you in your wars. Will you be grateful? وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ رِيحًا عَاصِفَةً تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا وَكُنَّا بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَالِمِينَ. And we subjugated the swift wind for Suleiman by his command. It carried him to the land that we had blessed. We have knowledge of all things. وَمِنَ الشَّيَاطِينِ مَا يَغُوصُونَ لَهُ وَيَعْلَمُونَ أَمْرًا دَاوُودَ ذَلِكَ وَكُنَّا لَهُمْ حَافِظِينَ. There were some shayateen who used to dive for him and do other work for him. We are their protectors. Remember Dawood and Suleiman when they attributed about a crop that was trampled by the goats of a people. We were witnesses to their decision. This was referred to an incident that occurred during the reign of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam. Okay, a farmer brought a person to the court of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, claiming that the person's goats had escaped from their enclosure at night and ravaged the farmer's crops. Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam ruled that all the goats should be given to the farmer as compensation. When the two left Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam's court, they met Hazrat Suleiman alayhi salam. When he asked them what the judgment of his father was, they informed him about it. Hazrat Suleiman alayhi salam told them, if I had passed judgment, it would have been beneficial to both parties. He then went to his father and repeated the same statement. Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam asked him what he had in mind. Hazrat Suleiman alayhi salam said that the goats be put in the custody of the farmer so that he may use the milk and wool. In the meantime, the other person should be given the farm and work. He worked the land until the crops grew to the condition that they were when the goats destroyed them. Thereafter, the goats were to be returned to the original owner. Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam was pleased with his decision and called the two back, instructing them likewise. Allah refers to this decision when he says, we explained the decision to Suleiman, Allahu Akbar, and granted wisdom and knowledge to both of them. The author of Bayaan al-Quran writes that this verse indicates that the original decision of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam was also correct. he decreed that the goats be given to the farmer because the value of the goats equals the value of the crops. This confirmed with the law, and both parties were constrained to abide. However, this decision was detrimental to the owner of the goats because he stood to lose everything. On the other hand, the ruling of Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam was beneficial to both, but required the consent of both parties. When they both agreed, it was duly enforced. Narrated by Dahal Mansoor, Volume 4, page 324. This shows the second decision did not indicate that the first was wrong. It is for this reason that Allah said that He granted wisdom and knowledge to both of them. At the end, it should be borne in mind that this was an affair between father and son. It has been reported that a camel belonging to Hazrat Bara bin Azib Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu once wandered into the orchard of some people and caused some damage. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ruled that the owner of the camel was not responsible for the damage because it was the duty of the owners of the orchard to ensure that their orchard was secure during the daytime. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam added that the owner of the animals should ensure that their animals are secured at night. They should be responsible for any damage caused by their animals if their animals cause damage during the night. Narrated by Abu Dawud. The different ruling of the jurists can be referred to in the books of jurisprudence. Bukhari page 487 reports that two women had an infant son each. It transpired that a wolf attacked and fled one of their sons. Each one of them then claimed that the living child was theirs. When the when the case was brought before Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, he, after much deliberation, awarded the child to the elder woman. As the two were returning from his court, they chanced upon Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam and related the entire incident to him. Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam told someone, "Bring me a knife. I shall cut the child in half and give each woman one half." Oh, the younger lady submitted, "May Allah give mercy on you. It is her child. It is her child." At this, Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam handed the child over the younger lady because her concern was the child was greater. This proved that the child was really hers. If it belonged to the elder woman, she would not have remained silent. Both decisions regarding the goat and the one about the two women were not inspired by revelation from Allah, but the respective Anbiya alayhi salam gave their verdict based upon their personal knowledge. Allah conferred upon Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam the divine scriptures called the Zabur. After recounting one of the decisions in Surah Sad, Allah said to him, "O Dawood, indeed we have made you a deputy on earth. So judge between people with the truth, and do not follow carnal passions, which will mislead you from Allah's path." Verse 26. Allah says in Surah Namal, "Indeed we granted knowledge to Dawood and Sulaiman. They both said, all praise is due to Allah who has preferred as above many of his believing bondsmen." Sulaiman succeeded Dawood and he said, "O people, we have been taught the speech of the birds and have been granted everything. This is certainly a manifest bounty." Verse number 15 and 16. In the verse under discussion, verse 79 of Surah Anbiya, Allah says about Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, "We subjugated the mountains and birds of Dawood, service and all they engage in Allah's glorification. We are the one who can do all these creation engage in tasbih with Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam." Allah says in Surah Saba, "Verily we granted Dawood a great bounty from us. O mountains, repeat the tasbih with Dawood," and the birds were also given the command. We also made iron soft for him. Verse number 10. Allah says in Surah Sad, be patient with all they say and remember our slave Dawood the strong. He was certainly penitent, verily we subjugated the mountains with him, who would glorify Allah by evening and at daybreak. We also subjugated the birds who all gathered together. They were all penitent towards Allah. We strengthened his kingdom and granted him wisdom and decisive speech, verse 17 till 20. The hadith report that Allah had granted Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam a beautiful voice. One can imagine the magnificent scene of him reciting the Zabur with the chorus of the birds and the mountains. We have already explained how the seemingly animates creation of a language in zikr. This was mentioned in the commentary of verse 74 of Surah Baqarah, where Allah says, indeed, they are some of them the rocks that fall out of the fear for Allah. However, we humans cannot understand how they make zikr. People in former times used coats of armor, shields, and helmets to protect themselves in battle. Allah mentions another favor upon Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam when he says, we taught Dawood the skill of making armor so that it protects you in your wars. Will you be grateful? Allah says in Surah Sabah, we also made iron soft for him, for Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, and we instructed him, made coats of armor, perfect the links, and you all should do good deeds. I am certainly watching whatever you do, verse number 11. Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam used to mold the links of the armor by hand and then piece them together to complete the coat of armor. Ibn Kasir Rahimullah has reported that Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam used to make one coat of armor daily, which he used to sell for 6,000 dirhams. He would then spend 2,000 on the needs of his family, and the remaining 4,000 would be used to feed the Bani Israel with bread made of fine white flour. Volume 3, page 547. The incident of two decisions of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam and Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam illustrates that a judge can retract his decisions if another is found to be more suitable. However, this will apply only when his decisions was not based on an explicit law of the Quran or Hadith. It will apply when a judge bases his decision upon a personal opinion in the absence of any explicit law from the Quran and Hadith. Of course, when a law is categorically stated in the Quran or the Hadith, it will be haram for the judge to use his personal reasoning. Imam Darul Qutni Rahmullah has recorded the following letter for Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, in which the principles of court judgment are outlined. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu wrote, it should be noted that passing judgment between people in an essential responsibility and should always be adopted. So if anyone comes to you with a case, then pass judgment in favor of the truth, because the truth cannot be of any use it is not enforced. Be just between people with regard to whom you admit to your gatherings, to whom you pay attention, and in your judgment. This should be done so that no high-ranking person may feel that you would oppress another because of him. And so that no low-ranking person should think that you would oppress him. He continues to write, presenting a witness and the duty of the plaintiff, while the defendant will be required to swear on oath in the absence of a witness. While it is permissible to reconcile between people, reconciliation cannot be adopted when it means permitting someone that is haram or forbidding something that is halal. If you learn of the correct ruling after already passing one, let not your original ruling prevent you from enforcing the truth. The second ruling, because the truth is the real thing and error cannot alter it. It is better to take recourse of the truth than to be obstinate about error. Exert yourself to unravel whatever creates trouble in your heart. If you do not find any explicit guidance in the Quran and the Hadith, then try to understand similar situations and examples. Then base your decisions upon an assimilation and comprehensive study of the two situations. Then you should pass judgment according to that which Allah would be pleased with and which seems most correct in your estimation. Grant the plaintiff grace to produce his evidence when he does, then pass judgment accordingly, otherwise pass judgment against him. This period of grace will prove to be beneficial in revealing the truth and becoming and bringing the criminal to justice. All Muslims are reliable and may offer testimony for each other. The only exceptions are those who have been previously lashed for slander, those whom you have previously found to be liar, and those who have been found guilty of nepotism in previous testimony. The testimony of these people should never be accepted. Allah knows the secrets of the hearts and people's intentions. Witnesses terminate disputes. Do not be agitated when people bring their disputes to you, and do not let it distress you. Do not sit in isolation with those who have brought their disputes to you. Judge between them with equity, and Allah will reward you for it. Speak favorably of people solely for Allah's pleasure. Allah will solve all other problems that may arise because of your association with people. Allah will expose the faults of those who pretend to look good, but are really not so. And we subjugated the swift wind for Suleiman. By his command, it carried him to the land what he had blessed. We have knowledge of all things. A verse of Surah Sa'ad says that Hazrat Suleiman salam prayed, O my Rabb, forgive me and grant me a kingdom, and cannot be had by any others after me. Undoubtedly, you are the great giver. Allah continues, so we subjugated the wind for him, which would blow gently by his command wherever he wished to go. We also subjugated the shayateen for him, who were builders and divers. Besides these shayateen, there were others who were shackled in chains. This is our gift to spend on withhold without any accountability. Undoubtedly, he has a close position to us and a favorable return. Verse number 35 till 40. Surah number is 38 in the Quran. Allah accepted the dua made by Hazrat Sulaiman salam above. He was therefore given control over the jinn and the winds. In a short while, the winds carried him and his army, consisting of humans, jinns, and birds, wherever they needed to go. Sometimes, according to the need, the wind carried him speedily, as mentioned in the above verse of Surah Anbiya, where Allah says that it was a swift wind when Hazrat Sulaiman salam desired. It would also carry him gently, so mentioned in the above verse of Surah Sa'ad, where Allah says that the wind would blow gently by His command. Allah says in verse 12 of Surah Saba, Surah number is 34 in the Quran, that in a single morning or a single evening, the wind would carry them a distance that would normally take a month to travel. Hazrat Sulaiman salam also had control over the jinn, who would carry out various tasks for him. He would also punish them for any misdeeds and binds them in chains from which they could not escape. Allah says there were some shayateen who used to die for him and do not work for him. The divers from them used to find various gems and jewels from the sea, bringing them back to Hazrat Sulaiman salam. Allah says in Surah Saba, as he plead, they would construct for him huge building, status dishes, and size of dams, and large pots which could not be moved from their place. Verse number is 13. And the surah number is 34 in the Quran. Hazrat Abu Huraira Raziallah Ta'ala reports that a jinn once attempted to disrupt the salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah granted the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam the ability to capture this jinn. The following morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba Raziallah Ta'ala anhum that he wanted to tie this jinn to one of the masjid pillars so that they could see it. However, he recalled the dua of his brother Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam when he prayed, O my Rabb, forgive me and grant me such a kingdom that will not be granted to anyone after me. Verily you are the bestower. Therefore Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam released him, and Allah sent him back disgraced, narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. According to a narration of Hazrat Abu Darda Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah's enemy Iblis came to throw a flame at my face. I thrice repeated, I seek protection with Allah from you, and I curse you with the full curse of Allah. However, he was still not deterred. I then wanted to grab hold of him by Allah. If it were not for the prayer of my brother Suleiman, I would have tied him up and kept him until the morning so that the children of Medina could play with him. Allahu Akbar. Narrated by Muslim, Volume 1, page 205. Tirmizi reports that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you see a snake in your home, then say to it, we remind you of the pledge that you took with Nuh and Suleiman, the son of Dawood alayhi salam, that you will not harm us. If the snake reappears, therefore, then kill it. Since Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam had control of the jinn and birds, it is obvious that he also exercised control over all the other animals and reptiles as well. Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud Raziyallahu Ta'ala reports that mention was once made of certain words that were reputed to cure the effects of poison. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhum to recite these for him. When it was recited to him, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there was no harm in saying them. These were the words that Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam has derived from the poisonous creatures themselves. Darul Mansoor, Volume 4, page 327. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.